What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, man, what a day they had yesterday. Not only making potentially the biggest offseason free agent signing in the history of the organization, but also shipping their top wide receiver to the Carolina Panthers in exchange for, well, a very fast and probably reliable cornerback. We're going to dive into all that, plus what it means moving forward. Free agency is just heating up. The Pittsburgh Steelers have plenty of cap space and plenty of moves left to make, and now they have a giant hole at wide receiver that we anticipate they will fill at some point relatively soon. It is a wild 24 hours. It's been a wild 48 hours for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They essentially made 4 moves and, had massive repercussions because of it. Well, what are your thoughts? Just in general over the last 48 hours.
Just remember when we were sitting there on Monday morning or Monday afternoon. It hits noon. We are, sitting there. An hour passes, another hour passes, and we're like, nothing's happening. Apparently Steelers just have no moves to make. Apparently I was completely wrong. I was wondering when the Steelers were going to do something, and apparently it just needed to wait another 24 hours, and the Steelers were going to let it all rip, just everything completely rip on one day, in one afternoon. They saw everyone on Monday make all their moves, and then they said, you know what, just give me a little bit more time. Just let me cook a little bit, and then I'll dump this all on you.
That's like literally what it is. I keep saying it. We said it before the podcast. I said it to my fiance yesterday. I'm like, everybody's freaking out around like noon, 1 o'clock. Everybody's like, come on, dude, do something. This is ridiculous. And you're just like, 4 o'clock's going to roll around. These guys are going to start. I don't know what it is about Omar Khan. Maybe he's not a morning guy. I have no idea, but that man works magic as everybody else is punching the clock, leaving the office. He's like, no. We're just getting started. It was a wild 48 hours. We're going to dive into all of it. We're going to start with the Diontae trade, the Patrick Queen signing, what it means, who Diontae Jackson is, the whole nine. Quick call to action for you guys as we've been pushing. Please go subscribe to our YouTube Clips channel. The link is in the pinned comment below. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're giving away a signed Mean Joe Green jersey on top of a couple other giveaways. You enter as soon as you subscribe to that channel, so please make sure to go do that. And there's a tweet floating around on All Steelers somewhere where we're giving away a Russell Wilson t-shirt, so make sure that you go toss your name into that as well. We appreciate all the support, and the growth of that channel has been pretty cool already. Let's start with Diontae Johnson. Massive trade last night. Seemingly, I don't want to say out of nowhere, but the Carolina Panthers kind of came out of nowhere. And the fact that it happened, you could look at social media coverage alone and say Diontae Johnson's trade happened simultaneously with CJ Gardner-Johnson signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. And there were like 3 tweets from major national headlines saying, hey, the Diontae trade happened, and then everybody else was like, CJ Gardner-Johnson's going back to the Eagles. This is crazy. It kind of snuck under the radar. Massive move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They get back Diontae Jackson, a 28-year-old corner spent his whole career with Carolina, and a 6th-round pick. They give up a 7th-round pick, so a late-round swap, and you're going Diontae for Diontae Jackson. When it comes to the salary cap space, I know everybody's a little bit confused about that situation. It basically evens out. The Pittsburgh Steelers lose $500,000 worth of salary cap space because they're taking on some of Diontae's contract. That's okay. They basically null and void. It's a scratch. They get a reliable corner. Your reaction to Diontae headed to the NFC, what are they, South? The NFC South in Carolina.
Yeah, the best division in football. We sat on this podcast and I said to myself, I said to everyone, don't trade Diontae. Like, this doesn't make you any better. And then I found myself last night trying to defend the trade somehow. Like, I thought it was fine, like you don't lose Diontae Johnson or a player of Diontae Johnson's caliber, and I think feel really good about it. But this was about as good as I feel like the Steelers could have hoped for. You need a corner. You got a guy who has, I think, started every game that he has been healthy for as a professional player. He's got 14 picks over the course of his career. Like, I don't really hate the return for it.
Yep.
And if you believe the reports that Diontae himself demanded this trade, that this was his idea to want to get out of Pittsburgh a little bit, then I don't know. The return almost doesn't matter at that point. At that
Hmm.
point, you just need to get someone who doesn't want to be there to be here, out of here. And it's unfortunate to lose a guy Deontay's caliber, but like I think you alluded to, this is a completely deep class of free agent wide receivers and draftable wide receivers. Like this. If you were going to lose Diontae Johnson, if you were going to trade him away, this is the perfect time to do it. There were too many options, and yeah, I don't think this made the Steelers better, but it seemed like a move that they needed to make.
Yeah. Look, I agree. I don't think that you look at it and you just initial glance, you're going, Diontae Johnson's worth more than that. This is not splashy enough. You probably could have got more the way that the market was shaping itself out. And I don't know, just Diontae Johnson's worth doesn't seem like it's worth a 28-year-old corner who's had a little bit of injury issues in the past couple of years, who probably, had a good season last year, but didn't have any interceptions. But you just look at the grand scheme of things. The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't lose much salary cap space. They added a veteran corner because they needed a veteran corner. The market for wide receivers is very deep right now, and the NFL draft market for wide receivers is very deep. And the Pittsburgh Steelers probably plan on adding through both free agency and the NFL draft. They needed a corner. They needed a veteran corner, and that option was not there for them. People were talking about L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Johnson, all these guys. Everybody was gone. Kansas City Chiefs are possibly going to trade Sneed, but it's going to be way higher than just a Diontae Johnson swap for swap trade. You don't have almost any options in free agency. You had to look at it and just say, if the Steelers need a veteran corner, they got to do it through a trade. Diontae Jackson does just that. Plus, on top of that, the Steelers are slow. The Steelers have been a slow team for a long time, and we have talked about how slow that they are. Diontae Jackson is fast, very fast, maybe the fastest corner in football. Like, the dude is blazing fast. That's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers need. It's not a splashy trade. It's the Cameron Johnston of trades. Good punter, good trade, cool, makes a lot of sense, gets you what you need to get, feel really good about it, makes your team better overall, but not much pizzazz there. But I think it works, and I think that the Steelers got what they needed to get out of it, and they probably feel comfortable. And if Diontae hit the open market and Diontae Jackson was on the open market, and you were able to just sign Diontae Jackson and you let Diontae Johnson walk, people would be pretty okay with that move. I look at it essentially the same way. You just swapped upcoming free agents and said, hey, let's just do this a year early and land a veteran. And I think it makes things a lot easier for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You expect Diontae to, as of right now, at least, like, you're looking at that as the Joey Porter, Diontae Jackson 1-2 punch. And do you think it lowers the pressure to draft a corner? Do you still expect that to be a top 1-2, maybe 3 draft pick for the Steelers?
No, I think it lowers the pressure like a ton. I don't think you're drafting a corner in the first 2 rounds probably at this point now. Like, you've got to get a receiver now too. Unless you sign 1 or 2 in free agency, like you need receivers. You need receivers, you need offensive linemen. Like, corner gets bumped way down the list right now. And whether or not anyone else like thinks that Diontae Jackson is a starting caliber corner and a guy that you can rely on to start in this defense, he's going to start. Like, this is not a move that you make unless you believe that Diontae Jackson, unless if you're Omar Khan, you believe that he is a starting caliber corner, a guy that you could lean on. So I get it. Like, people might not believe it, but I don't know. Diontae Jackson is here. He's seems to be their guy right now. So I think corner gets bumped way down the list. What were you gonna say?
I don't know about way down the list. I agree with the, maybe a first round corner is off the board, like maybe those guys. I think second round it's still there depending on how things shape out. I think it just makes things very interesting. Like, you look at the situation and you go, they still need a center. They got to draft a corner. They're not going to not draft a corner, especially Jackson's on a 1-year deal with these guys essentially. You're not going to not draft a corner, especially with how good the class is as well. You definitely need a wide receiver. And at one point it was like wide receiver maybe in the 4th round. Now you need a top wide receiver. You need an offensive tackle. You probably need a defensive tackle. You don't need an inside linebacker, which is huge. That removes a major need, but you still need a safety. It's just like, it's very interesting how you sit here and just say the Steelers draft board has somewhat gotten like just more diverse, but all top guys. Like, you need to fit all these guys into maybe 1, 2, 3 picks, and you have 5 or 6 positions that you have to fill.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up safety too, because safety is a thinning free agent market. Like, I assumed they were going to go after one of those big guys in free agency, and they did not do that. Either they didn't or they missed out on them. Like, I think Poyer has already signed somewhere. Simmons has Simmons been signed yet, or is
No.
Was it
I still
that
think
was
they're going
only
to sign Simmons. If I had to guess, Simmons gets signed in the next 48 hours. Like, if I had to make a prediction, he's a Pittsburgh Steeler within by the end of
Really?
Thursday. Yeah.
Okay.
If I had to guess, there's like
Start
those
buying your
veteran
Justin
guys.
Simmons jerseys now.
That's what I just think that he makes too much sense. He's going to be cheap. The longer that they wait it out, it's going to work out in their favor. Like, it's like the Omar Khan does things just like one at a time, which I appreciate. As a journalist, as somebody who's got to write all this news, I'm very thankful that it's not just boom, 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 rapid fire. It's, yeah, you know what? One day we're going to sign Russell Wilson. The next day we're going to sign Patrick Queen. Then we're going to sign Justin Simmons. We're going to trade Diontae at night while everybody's relaxing, just to make sure nobody's like all pressured up, and and then they move on. And I think that they get Simmons. I still think that they get Simmons. If not, I could see, I mean, like, Eddie Jackson's still on the board. I think they get the options, you're right, are much less splashy than they were 24 hours ago. The dominoes kind of fell fast, but I think that they still, I don't know, add somebody somewhere. I do expect them to sign a safety. Before we dive into who they sign next, because I do want to talk to that, I think that we have some options. I think wide receivers on the board and some big names that we definitely have to dive into. We got to address Patrick Queen signing inside linebacker, former Raven. I mean, you can make an argument that that's the biggest signing the Pittsburgh Steelers have ever made, ever. $41 million, comes over 24 years old. Your thoughts on Patrick Queen?
Perfect signing, home run. To the point that, like, the money almost doesn't even matter. I don't know. Like, you look at 3 years, $41 million, and that's a big number. And for a team with limited cap space, I don't know, that number would scare you if it was any other player. This is a team that has been wandering the woods looking for, decent inside linebacker play, and you got excellent inside linebacker play with this signing. He is a perfect fit. You not only take him away from your biggest rival, but you add to your biggest hole in your defense. There's no one more perfect for this defense than Patrick Queen. So you pay him whatever money he wants. He can eat up as much of the salary cap as he wants, and this was just a move that the Steelers needed to make, and it was a home run as soon as they did it. I don't think anyone had a negative reaction to it, which is pretty rare for a free agent signing. Like, I thought I'd see someone saying he's overpaid or something like that. No, he is a perfect signing at the perfect price. Any price is really a bargain for Patrick Queen, to be quite honest.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I can find anything wrong with this. I'd be shocked if anyone else did either.
So I saw ESPN give him a C+, which is wild to me.
What?
Dude's C+ grade. I couldn't believe it at all. I was like, what? That makes zero sense. Just to run through, because I immediately was like, all right, well, let's just explain to everybody why they're wrong here. 24 years old, was a second-team All-Pro last season, made the Pro Bowl, had 133 tackles or something like that, is blazing fast for an inside linebacker, is a good coverage option, and his estimated market value, me and Nick talked about this yesterday, his estimated market value is $18 million. The Pittsburgh Steelers got him on a team-friendly deal. This year, it's just over $6.5 million for a cap hit. And overall, you're paying him an average of 13.6 or something million dollars. You got this guy for a bargain, team-friendly deal, 24 years old, all-pro, easily the biggest inside linebacker on the market. I mean, just looks like a steal. Like, this is how it's a steal. You could be a fan of Patrick Queen or not a fan of Patrick Queen. You have to look at it realistically and say, for what the Pittsburgh Steelers paid for a guy that gives them their best shot at recreating success at inside linebacker, There's just no questions. There's no questions. He is like, I saw people tweeting it out, and it is like, it's arguably the biggest free agent signing the Pittsburgh Steelers have made in the last, I mean, maybe ever. I'm not going to go that far back because I just don't know. I can't sit here and confidently say I know every single Steelers free agent signing, but I'll tell you that in the last, I don't know, 10 years, I think it's pretty high up there, if not the best, and gives them the best shot to just totally revamp that defense and like clear up a major hole. Like, it's been to go from, I mean, you could run through them. John Bostic, Avery Williamson, at one, it was Vince Williams, Robert Spillane, Devin Bush, and Miles Jack were like the guys that were like, all right, at some point, somebody is going to fill this hole for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The names that they've gone through to come out with this, I just think that it's like almost honestly worth the wait. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's like that Browns jersey with all the quarterbacks. You got to do one with the inside linebackers for the Steelers.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You think they're done signing inside linebackers?
I mean, maybe add some depth here or there, but I mean, I think you feel pretty good about Cole Holcomb and I mean, is Landon Roberts still under contract? I feel like I just realized I didn't know that. Yeah, you've got plenty of inside linebackers right there. And you've got depth too. Like, if you have some disaster, like, or even a third of, I mean, if you have a disaster like last year where literally every linebacker goes down, then you're out of luck that you can't really do anything about that. But you got as much depth, as much starting quality depth as I think you could possibly stack on one team within reasonable expectations. So I think it's more likely that they, pick up some cheap guy for depth, or I think they still could like draft a guy like real late and just say, you seem like a project.
Mark Robinson.
Pretty much. I mean, like, you just need someone like, you need bodies there at a certain point. I think that's possible, but I don't think they're making any kind of splash moves. I don't think because I mean, just you don't need more than 3 starting quality inside linebackers, right? Like, it's not. I mean, signing someone like that is gonna cost more money than it's worth, and you've got 3 starting quality guys on the roster right now, right?
So yesterday I talked about this, and I feel probably just as confident, especially after this one. I think the Steelers might release Cole Holcomb. I think that is a possibility.
Why?
Because you don't know when he's going to be healthy. Omar Khan did not sound very confident he was going to be ready for training camp, which I think worries them. He's back-to-back season-ending injuries. That's very concerning for a guy who is 27, going to be 28 years old. And I think if Jerome Baker is healthy, I think they look at him and say, this is a dude who has made more impact in the NFL, who probably does more of what we're looking for, who, we took a shot on Cole Holcomb, but let's move on. I don't have the number. I had it in front of me. I think they save $4 million, 4 point some million dollars by getting rid of Cole Holcomb. I don't know what Baker's salary is going to be, but I would expect it's cheap because he was released with a failed physical. So if you could come in here and say, hey, look, our team doctors tell us that he's good to go, I think it's a possibility. Like, I think if I had Justin Simmons, I feel very confident in, and who knows, by the time we're done recording this, he could sign elsewhere. But releasing Cole Holcomb and signing Jerome Baker, if I had to make make a bold prediction, that would be my bold prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just because I think that you don't know when he's going to be healthy thing, I think that concerns the hell out of them. And I just don't see them going into training camp saying, well, we have 2 right now, and hopefully Cole's good to go, but we don't really know because, at this point it's a question mark.
Yeah, that makes sense when you spell it out. I don't know. I don't really. If you holding onto my head, I don't think I would bet on that, but I see the logic behind it. And Jerome Baker would be a pretty fine guy to fill in at that spot. I did not know about Baker failing a physical. That makes things a lot easier.
He sprained MCL, dislocated wrist. I don't think that they released him with the failed physical designation. At least that's not what I saw. But Drew Rosenhaus's agent went on a radio show or something and was talking about how he failed a physical, and that's why they let him go.
Yeah. And I mean, Baker is really, if you're releasing a guy like Cole Holcomb, I mean, Baker's really the only other guy that you like. There's no,
No.
I don't know. It gets real thin after Jerome Baker, to be quite honest. I mean, it's like we're getting down into like Devin Bush territory. I mean, Levante
Yes.
David is,
No, he
he got
signed
signed. He
yesterday.
got signed. Yeah. Spotrac or Over the Cap takes a minute to update, but like then we're getting into like Devin Bush territory, and it's that's not a place that you want to be. I mean, Isaiah Simmons too. Like, not a ton of options out there once you get past a guy like Jerome Baker.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, if you can get him for relatively cheap, I just don't think they should be spending, big money on a third inside linebacker.
No.
Like
Got to be under $10 million. Definitely under $10 million. Maybe under like $8 million for Jerome Baker, which I think maybe you could get. And it's got to be a team friendly deal. I think it could be, if it goes down, I'll tell you exactly how it's going to go down. It'll be the exact way that a Landon Roberts signed with the Steelers last year. And then it was like, I think it was either a Landon or Cole. I don't remember the order, but one of them signed, and then later the other one signed, and then they released Miles Jack. They made sure that they had their inside linebackers. Then they moved on from their current inside linebackers. I could see that being the case this year. I see that being the case when it comes to like a DJ Reader and Larry Ogunjobi. Like they're going to sign first, then they're going to release. That way that they can shore up exactly what's going on. Which brings us to really the next big thing, the big last thing, whatever you want to call it. Who's next? Because the Steelers have a lot more moves to spend, or a lot more moves to make. They have $17.9 million to spend right now. They could still create, I want to say, almost $35 million with TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Minkah Fitzpatrick restructures and possible releases, and then extending Cam Hayward. I want to say it's 35 mil, maybe a little bit more. Their final product, they were at like $25 million as of yesterday, and they could have got upwards to $50 to $60 million. Now they're at 17, so I want to say they're at like $40 million. They could get themselves to before it's all said and done. Who's the next signing? And do you see a splash at wide receiver? I feel like that's the big one. Is a big wide receiver coming to Pittsburgh?
It depends on how you define splash, and it depends on how you define big. Because Tyler Boyd's pretty big, relatively speaking. He's 6'3". But
yeah,
no, I don't think he's big in the way that you might have thought. But I think they go veteran as far as free agent signings for a wide receiver. I like Boyd just as a, I don't know if you, I think they're gonna go. I think the best bet is to go Boyd in free agency to fill a slot need for receiver, and then you draft another outside guy. And I think you kind of aim high with that guy you're drafting. I think they need kind of a veteran presence in the wide receiver room. I'm not sure I'm super comfortable going into a year with, the leaders of the room being George Pickens and Calvin Austin. Like those guys, but I think we need a little bit of a steadier hand in there, a little bit of a veteran presence. So
yes,
I think they've got to get at least one veteran wide receiver. I think Boyd would be a near perfect fit. Not going to be crazy expensive. That would be the move I'd go first. I could also see, another former Bengal that you mentioned. I think DJ Reader would be a really big target, and I feel like a really nice addition to that defensive line room.
Yes.
So I think those are the two guys that I think I'm keeping my eye on the most moving forward. I mean, obviously there are those safeties, but I don't know. For some reason, I think those are going to drag out a little bit. Like I think those are going to take some time. We had an initial rush, and I think they're going to move a little bit more slowly with those safeties.
So I agree with you on that. I know I said Justin Simmons. I think it's like a 24 to 48 hour mark for the safeties. It's not
right. Which counts as slow. I think that counts as slow at this
100% for the way that the NFL. I mean, it was 12-0. We said it yesterday, or we said it Monday. We recorded the podcast Monday morning, talked about Russ. We got off the podcast. We were gearing up, planning for the day, and I was like, all right, 12:03, shit's gonna start popping off. And at 12:01, shit started popping off. And it said like. To go to Thursday that's slow as humanly possible. So I would say 24 to 48 hours. I expect a safety. When I say next, I agree. I think DJ Readers is definitely a name to watch. I think he makes a ton of sense. He's just starting to take some visits. I could see one of those visits being Pittsburgh. I could see that working out so well for them. It just makes way too much sense. They got to start creating money if that's the case, but I think it makes so much sense. I'm going to toss out a wide receiver that just hit the open market last night, maybe early this morning. I don't know. I woke up to the news. Hunter Renfrow, former Raider, Didn't play much the last season, 2 seasons. I was told a year ago, before the season, I want to say, maybe at the trade deadline, might have been both, that the Steelers had interest in Hunter Renfrow, that they had conversations about acquiring Hunter Renfrow, but that his price tag was just a little bit too high. He was making like $13 million, $14 million a season. They were already paying Diontae. They just didn't see it being worth that. That is a great slot guy. He's a year younger than Tyler Boyd, and I think Tyler Boyd's the perfect fit. Like, I love Tyler Boyd. I think that signing makes a ton of sense. It would excite the Steelers fans. I think him and Mike Tomlin have a connection. I think that makes a ton of sense. Renfro's a year younger. I think at one point, maybe had a higher ceiling that fell off a cliff. I don't know what happened there. If the Steelers could get him like cheap, like $3-4 million, I think that's definitely an option for them. And he's a veteran and he could start. You don't have to worry about him. I know people are going to say like, oh, they just did that with Allen Robinson. I think Hunter Renfrow is a lot better than Allen Robinson was when he came to Pittsburgh. That would be a name that I watch. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about, the Calvin Ridleys. If Calvin Ridley did not sign yet, I believe.
He did not. I don't believe he did.
Calvin Ridleys, I think that's, you could put it on the radar and say possibly, depending on, how much Steelers are willing to spend. But I think you're right with the slot guy. Renfrow and Boyd would be the names that I watch, and then you go into the NFL draft and you're feeling good about it. I could also see them, that would be 4 if they go that direction. I could see them signing like a smaller name as well. Like, I'm going to toss this out there. Maybe a return from Ray McLeod. He tweeted out, I caught a tweet of his yesterday, 2 days ago, where it was him sending the black and yellow hearts to Russell Wilson signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know what that means, but he's a good return guy. He can match up well with Calvin Austin and allow them to kind of do a lot of the same things. I think that's, and Ray was good when he wasn't great, but he was called upon a lot of times in a lot of big moments, and he came through. So I wouldn't rule that one out. I think that's the way to go. And then it goes safety. And I think that's how they top it off. Like, they just go safety, maybe a Brian Allen. I'm going to keep tossing that name out there. But I would say that's the order the Pittsburgh Steelers go. Do you expect what position do you expect to sign next?
That's a good question. I think they go receiver next, to be quite honest. Yeah. I feel like that's a position where you need to shore that up right now. And I don't know. That's just I think that's your biggest hole right now. I feel like safety, you have, I don't know, like I said, safety's going to drag out a little bit. And the rest of those positions, you have options in the draft too. So I don't think you feel a huge sense of urgency there. Like, you've got to, as far as, some inside linebacker depth, a center, a tackle, things like that. Like, they're probably not going to sign a free agent tackle, but like those things, like, if we don't get a guy in free agency, like, we'll draft someone. Like, that doesn't really concern me at all. But I feel like safety and slot receiver are 2 places where either the draft options aren't great, or you need, in the case of safety, or in the case of receiver, you need like an older guy, or you need just, I don't know, you need a steadier presence there. And I feel like your slot options, you need to kind of address that now. And then you can address, an outside guy later. But I think receiver, if I was Omar Khan, would be my first priority right now. That would be where I would say, look, we need to shore this up right now. I want to feel good about this before we have to go address these other positions.
I agree. I think that's the way to go. You don't make a trade like Diontae Johnson and then wait around and say, well, we got time. That's
the other thing. I think they might have a plan in place. Like, I don't think Diontae, like this Diontae thing, it kind of, if you're reading between the lines, it seems like it was in the works for a little bit now. So I don't think this was a spur of the moment thing. So I have to assume that they have a plan of some kind.
Yes, I agree. I think that they knew what they were doing. They don't make these. Omar Khan does it. Omar Khan has been promising. Like, this dude, when this is all said and done, we're going to sit down. We're going to have a full podcast about how great Omar Khan is, because this dude's killing it. And I think he thinks very meticulously, and he's always a step ahead. And I just don't, like you said, like, this seemed planned. And Art Rooney's not sitting around saying, yep, send our number 1 receiver to Carolina. We'll figure out the rest later. He wants a detailed plan of how you're going to replace him, and I'm sure Omar Khan's got it. So I would expect that move to happen probably today, and then the rest of it comes afterwards with a couple of names out there to be watched for. With that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Find us anywhere you get your podcast. Remember, go hit the link in the pinned comment below. Subscribe to our new YouTube page for all our clips. We appreciate all the support. Once we hit 1,000, we're going to do a bunch of giveaways, including a signed Mean Joe Green jersey. So please make sure that you go do that. Find all our work at allsteelers.com, our pit coverage from the ACC tournament down at InsideThePanthers.com. We will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.